Deuteronomy of Devarim, chapter 6 and verse 4. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah Elohim, Yahuwah is one. Shema Yisrael, Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah Echad, Yahuwah Echad. Shemot, or Exodus chapter 20 and verse 3. We will have no other mighty ones. We will have no other mighty ones against the Most High. Against the Most High. We will not make any carved image. We will not make any carved image. Or any likeness. Or any likeness. Of that which is in Shamaim above. Of that which is in Shamaim above. Or which is in the earth beneath. Or which is in the earth beneath. Or which is in the waters under the earth. Or which is in the waters under the earth. We will not bow down to them. We will not bow down to them. Nor serve them. Nor serve them. For Yahuwah is a jealous El. Is a jealous El. Visiting wickedness. Visiting wickedness. The fathers of the children. The fathers of the children. To the third and fourth generation. To the third and fourth generation. Those who hate him. Those who hate him. But showing kindness. But showing kindness. To thousands of those. To thousands of those. Who love him. Who love him. And keep his commandments. And keep his commandments. Who will not bring the name. Who will not bring the name. Of Yahuwah Elohim. Of Yahuwah Elohim. to nothing. For Yahuwah will not leave us unpunished. Who brings his name to nothing. We will remember the Shabbat day. To keep it Kodesh. 6 days we will labor. And do all our work. But the seventh day is the Shabbat. Of Yahuwah Elohim. 4 and 6 days. Yahuwah made Shamayim. And the earth. And the sea. And all that is in them. And he rested the seventh day. Therefore Yahuwah Barak the Shabbat day. We will respect our fathers. And our mothers. So that our days will be long. Upon the earth. We will not murder. We will not commit adultery. We will not steal. We will not bear false witness. Against our neighbor. We will not covet. Anything that is our neighbor. Father Yah, we pray and ask, Father, that you would charge us by the words of our mouth, Father, to be diligent of guarding your commandments, Father. We pray, Father, that you would hear our words and accept our prayer and accept our petition, Father. That you would allow the blood of your Son, Father, to cover us, Father, and would cover a multitude of transgressions, Father. Father, we pray for any soldiers in transit, Father, you would allow them to make it in safety, Father. We pray for those who have gathered here together, Father, that you would enlighten us with your word, Father. Allow your word to go forth, Father, and give utterance unto the speaker and understanding unto the hearer, so that we all may be doers of your word, Father. Allow your Ruach, Father, to be with us on this day, Father. Allow the praises of our mouth, Father, to be accepted, Father, that you would find them acceptable in this day, Father. Father, we thank you, Father, for your ear, Father, for hearing our prayers, Father. We thank you for your word that is going to go forth, Father. We thank you for just life today, Father. We thank you for the goodness and the gladness that you have put in our hearts, Father, for the joy that is in our hearts today, Father. Father, we thank you, Father. All these things we pray, we give thanks. So be it. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
He didn't get to, but we did. My hallelujah belongs to you. Why, Joseph? Why? Why? You deserve it. 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 All of the glory belongs to you. Hallelujah. All of the glory belongs to you. All of the glory belongs to you. All of the glory belongs to you. You deserve it. 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 My hallelujah belongs to you. My hallelujah belongs to you. His praise, your praise, your praise belongs to Yahweh. It belongs to Him for everything He's done for you. Keep it going. My hallelujah belongs. All the times when you came up short, all the times when you know you did wrong. You deserve it. He deserves it. You deserve it. You deserve it. Nobody's more than enough for Him. You deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve of Yah. I will remain confident in this. I will see the goodness of Yah. I will remain confident in this. I will see the goodness of Yah. I will remain confident in this. I will see the goodness of Yah. Hey. Woo. Come on. Oh. Hey. We set our hope on you. We set our hope on you. We set our hope on your love. We set our hope on the one who is the everlasting God. You are the everlasting God. You are the everlasting. Woo! Hey! Hey! Go! We set our hope on you. We set our hope on your love. We set our hope on the one who is the everlasting God. You are the everlasting God. You are the everlasting. We set our hope on you. We set our hope on your love. We set our hope on the one who is the everlasting God. You are the everlasting God. You are the everlasting. We set our hope on you. We set our hope on your love. We set our hope on the one who is the everlasting God. You are the everlasting God. You are the everlasting. We set our hope on you. We set our hope on your love. We set our hope on the one who is the everlasting God. You are the everlasting God. Hey, we set our hope on you. We set our hope on your love. We set our hope on the one who is the everlasting God. You are the everlasting God. You are the everlasting. We set our hope on you. We set our hope on your love. We set our hope on the one who is the everlasting God. You are the everlasting God. You are the everlasting. I will remain confident in this. I will see the goodness of Yah. I will remain confident in this. I will see the goodness of Yah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We praise it, right? Hey, no music, nothing. Let's praise. Let's get it in. Hallelujah. Praise his name. Step up and praise him. He is our Father. He's our Creator. He's our everything. Everything. Praise his name. Praise him. Hallelujah. Woo! Woo!
While he's playing this song, I'm going to tell y'all a little short story My mama told me, my daddy told me, whenever I'm in the church, call on the Most High. So I'm in trouble. Yeah, I need you right now. Yeah, I need you right now. Yeah, I need you right now. And when he kept thinking about this, he kept thinking about this, he got louder and louder and louder and louder. And the louder he got, the guy who took him was in hot started getting scared. He said, this boy has to go down. This boy is calling out for some help. I'm scared because he might get something. So what happened? As the brother kept calling out, the guy got scared. He opened up the trunk and let that little boy out. That's why I say, we got to have total praise. Because every praise we sing is true right now. Just like that brother. All right now? So let's sing it, y'all.
Every praise is to our God. Every word of worship of one accord.
Every praise is true right now. Sing it, Jesus.
Hallelujah. Every praise is to our God. Every word of worship of one accord.
Every praise
is to our God. Hallelujah. Every praise is to our God. Every word of worship of one accord. Every praise to our God.
Sing hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Every praise is to our God. Every word of worship and one accord. Every praise to our God. Hallelujah. Every praise is to our God. Every word of worship and one accord. Yeah.
Check 1 2 1 2 1 2. Yeah, check 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Nate.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. How's everybody feeling? Y'all sound like y'all feeling too good. Ask y'all one more time, y'all feeling? There we go. We was blessed to live another day so we can give it better effort than that, you know what I mean? And without further ado, weighing in and walking 14 stones, hailing from Detroit, Michigan by way of the west side. We give you the brother who wants all the smoke, who digresses on him every time he's up. We give you the fabulous DeLorean.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. How we doing? Y'all is not gonna let me let that all the smoke stuff go, right? Oh my goodness. How we doing on this Shabbat? Good, pretty good. It's hotter than a ball game, right? Right? All right. So today, I decided to go, and the title of the lesson is Boldness in YAH, Do You Have It? Why I titled it that? There you go. Why I titled it that? Again, it comes with those self-reflections. It comes with the self-analysis. How can I be better in this walk? How can I show more courage? Because that's what that's another word for boldness is courage. And so it got my mind it sparked something in my mind to go into different examples of how our forefathers was valiant in doing the will of YAH in different ways, including the Mashiach, including the apostles. You have various individuals that carried themselves in a certain manner where they showed to have courage. Okay, all right. So what does it mean to be bold? Anybody know?
To speak real loud.
Well, yeah, that falls under that. But
we gotta do that.
oh, you know what? Yeah, we gotta do. I'm sorry. We gotta do the visitors first. We gotta the new people. I skipped over that. I'm sorry. Do we have any new people in the house? You have first time?
Stand up, please. Speak bold and loud like you just did.
The third time. Okay. Well, we talking about any new people? Any new people?
You want that?
You want to give him a mic or something?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, he done been here. Oh. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go forward. So when we're talking about being bold or having courage is the willing to act innovatively and take risk, right? Take risk when it's necessary, right? All right, think about the Mashiach. He showed fear before he got crucified, but yet he was still willing to go through with it because he saw the bigger picture. Okay, that's an act of courage. being bold, because the reason he was doing it was far bigger than him. It was about, delivering the children of Israel out of the curses and giving mankind a way back to the Father. All right. So let's open up with Psalm 27:1.
Psalm chapter 27 and verse 1. Yahuwah is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Yahuwah is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?
So Yahuwah is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Yahuwah is my strength and my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? All right. If we have Yah on our side, there's no need to be afraid of anything. There's no gods above our Father. Okay? Keep reading.
Verse 2. When the wicked, even mine enemies, and my foes came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell.
Why did they stumble and fall? Because he had his faith in Yah, and he believed that he would be protected, and he was obedient to Yah, and therefore Yah protected him in return, right? Go ahead.
Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident.
Right.
One thing have I desired of Yahuwah, that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of Yahuwah all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of Yahuwah and inquire in his temple. For in thy time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secrets of his tabernacle shall he be hid, that he hide me. He shall set me up upon a rock.
Right. So real quick, he says, for in the time of trouble he shall hide me in the pavilion. Anybody know what a pavilion is? Like a tent. It's like a tabernacle, right? So we hide him in there. But then he goes on to say, he shall hide me. He shall let me backtrack. He shall, in the secret of his tabernacle, he shall hide me. So in the secret of his tabernacle, meaning, he'll be so covered, right, in the secret of his tabernacle that, there will be no enemy that could come up against him at all, right? So he will really that's like a metaphor, just basically saying that his, the Most High's protection will have him covered to the point where the enemy can't penetrate, all right? And it's because his obedience. All right. Go down to verse 14.
Verse 14. Wait on Yahuwah, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on Yahuwah.
So that's the key, to wait on Yahuwah, and he will and be of good courage, and of course he will protect you. All right. So let's go to Matthew 10 and 16.
Matthew chapter 10 and 16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves.
He's talking to the disciples at this point. All right, getting ready to send them forth to teach the gospel. All right, go ahead.
But beware of men. For they will deliver you up to the councils, and they will scourge you in their synagogues. And ye shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles. But when they deliver you up, take no thought how or what you shall speak, for it shall be given you in that same hour what ye shall speak. For it is not you that speak, but the Ruach of your Father which speaketh in you.
Right. So he's getting them prepared. He's saying you're going to be delivered before councils, before kings. And when you do, not to worry, because the Holy Ruach will guide your mouth, and you will speak the wisdom necessary for that time period, right? During the time where they was getting afflicted. So let's go to Acts 4 and see some examples of that. Acts 4 and verse 1.
Acts chapter 4 and verse 1. And as they spake unto the people, the priests and the captains of the temple and the Sadducees came upon them, being grieved that they taught the people and preached through Yahushua HaMashiach the resurrection from the dead. And they laid hands on them and put them in hold unto the next day, for it was now evening tide. Howbeit many of them which heard the word believed, and the number of men was about 5,000. And it came to pass on the morrow that the rulers and the elders and the scribes and Ananias the high priest and Caiaphas and John and Alexander and as many as were on the kindred of the high priest were gathered together at Jerusalem. And when they had set them in the midst, they asked, by what power or by what name have you done this?
So they set them down before the high priest and all the relatives to the high priest and asking the disciples or asking the apostles, by what name do you do this? All right, what authority, who gave you this authority to go and spread this doctrine? Right? Go ahead.
Verse 8. Then Peter, being filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, said unto them, you rulers of the people and elders of Israel.
So now Peter is filled with the Ruach. All right. Now this, we talk about the Ruach. It has many attributes. All right. Of course, courage is one of them. And one of the things that Mashiach told the disciples was he already prepared them, like we just read in Matthew 10, how they will go before rulers and not to worry. All right. So it gives you a certain level of courage. All right, and, you know, and you'll see throughout this lesson how whenever the Most High is getting ready to send somebody to do His will or on a mission, that He will encourage them first and perform a miracle even to get them encouraged to go and do His will. All right, so keep reading.
If we this day be examined of the good deed done to the impotent man, by what means he is made whole, be it known unto you all and to all the people of Israel, that by the name of Yahushua HaMashiach of Nazareth, whom you crucified, whom Elohim have raised from the dead, even by him do this man stand here before you whole. This is the stone which was set at naught of you, the builders, which is become the head of the corner. Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under Shamayim given among men, whereby we must be saved. Now, when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, and perceived that they were unlearned and ignorant men, they marveled, and they took knowledge of them that they had been with Yahushua.
So right there, they saw that they had through the words that they preached to them and a little small testimony, they saw that they had actually walked with Mashiach, that they was actually believers in him. And so that kind of cut them to the heart, especially when he said, neither is there salvation in any other. Remember, they put their confidence fully in the law. They felt like there was no other way to get into the kingdom of the Most High. But again, the axe is laid to the root. All right? The axe is laid to the root. So the situation is you have to now go through Mashiach now. So when Peter said there's no other man that you can go through, just imagine what these men that has been practicing the law this whole time, they've been raised up in the law, and now they figure they have to change their ways. They're going to think that Peter is speaking blasphemy. All right? That's what I'm saying. Go to Acts 5 and, go to Acts. We still in Acts 4, 18 through 20. Read 18 through 20.
Still in Acts 4?
Yeah, Acts 4. Sorry about that.
Acts chapter 4, verse 18. And they called them and commanded them not to speak at all, nor teach in the name of Yahushua. But Peter and John answered and said unto them, whether it be right in the sight of Elohim to listen unto you more unto Elohim, judge you. For we cannot but speak the things which we have seen and heard.
Right. So look at the courage in Peter and the apostles. They have, at this point, they have the high priest and his family telling him not to speak in this name. But the courage in Peter, because he's walked with Mashiach and he's dealing with the Holy Ruach, he's saying, no, we're going to still speak this name and spread the gospel. And that takes a lot of courage when you are like the minority. All right, remember, these men, they lean on the law and they are saying, hey, we came up in this law, there's no other way to the Most High. And they just are not believers at this point. All right, Acts 5 and 24.
Acts chapter 5 and verse 24. Now, when the high priest and the captain of the temples and the chief priests heard these things, they doubted of them whereunto this would grow. Then came one and told them, saying, Behold, the men whom ye put in prison are standing in the temple and teaching the people.
So they just got out of prison and they're now standing in the temple. All right. They didn't even care that they just was in jail. This is the type of courage that they're dealing with. This is how bold they are. All right. Go ahead.
Then went the captains with the officers and brought them without violence, for they feared the people, lest they should have been stoned. And when they had brought them, they set them before the council, and the high priest asked them.
Now listen, they're in the council now. All right, remember Mashiach warned them that, you will be taken before councils for my name's sake. All right, go ahead.
Saying, did not we straitly command you that you should not teach in this name? And behold, ye have filled Jerusalem with your doctrine, and intend to bring this man's blood upon us. Then Peter and the other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey Elohim rather than men.
Right, so we ought to obey Elohim rather than men. All right, so they didn't care anything about these men, and they decreed not to speak Yahushua's name. All right, they still went and did it after they got out of prison. Now, if that ain't bold, what is bold then, right? All right, Acts 6 and verse 5.
Acts chapter 6 and verse 5. And the same pleased the whole multitude, and they chose Stephen, a man full of faith, and of the Ruach HaKodesh, and Philip, and Procurius, and Nicanor, and Timon, and Parmenius, and Nicholas, a proselyte in Antioch, whom they set before the apostles, and when they had prayed, they laid their hands on them, and the word of Elohim increased, and the number of the disciples multiplied in Jerusalem greatly, and a great company of the priests were obedient to the faith.
So even you had priests now, who was once not obedient, becoming obedient in the faith, and deciding to follow Yahushua, right? Go ahead.
And Stephen, full of faith and power, did great wonders and miracles among the people. Then there arose certain of the synagogue, which is called the synagogue of the Libertines, and the Syrians, and Alexandrians, and of the Cilicia, and of Asia, disputing with Stephen.
So all these synagogues came together from these different lands because the gospel is starting to spread. And Stephen is the main deacon that's spreading this gospel, right? Go ahead.
And they were not able to resist the wisdom and the ruach by which he spake. Then they summoned men which said, we have heard him speak blasphemous words against Moses and against Elohim. And they stirred up the people and the elders and the scribes, and came up upon him and caught him and brought him to the council.
I just notice how they said, we have heard him speak blasphemous words against Moses and against Elohim. Moses was only used as a vessel to spread the word, all right, to teach them the law when it was coming out of Egypt.
But other than that, Moses was not a god. So to show you the mentality of these men, they was worshiping Moses as if he was a god. True enough, he was a great man, but he was not a god. All right, he was not even on the level of Yeshua. All right, he was just a vessel who was used to spread, to teach the children of Israel the law. Right? Go ahead.
Verse 13, and set up false witnesses, which said, this man causeth not to speak, ceaseth not to speak blasphemous words against this Kodesh place and the law. For we have heard him say that this Yahushua of Nazareth shall destroy this place and shall change the customs which Moses delivered us. And all that sat in the council looked steadfastly on him, saw his face, and it had been the face of a Malachim.
Right. So they bearing false witness and saying that he is going against Moses, when in all reality, Moses prophesied against about Mashiach, right? Let's go into Acts 7 and 51. So now, like, let me give a little backdrop. So Stephen is getting ready to go into a council, and you have to give a testimony, all right? And then after his testimony, something is going to happen. Let's go to verse 51.
Acts chapter 7 and verse 51. You stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears, you do always resist the Ruach HaKodesh as your fathers did. So do you.
This is Stephen talking to the Jews and letting them know about themselves, right? And this is him in the council. Go ahead.
Verse 52. Which of the prophets have you not your fathers persecuted, and they have slain them which shewed before of the coming of the just one, of whom you have been now the betrayers and murderers, who have received the law by the dispensation of Malachims and have not kept it.
Right, so he called them out. He's like, y'all received the law of the Most High, and you have not kept it. Right? Go ahead.
When they heard these things, they were cut to the heart, and they mashed on him with their teeth. But he, being full of the Ruach HaKodesh, looked steadfastly into Shamayim and saw the esteem of Elohim, and Yahushua standing on the right hand of Elohim, and said, Behold, I see the Shamayims open, and the Son of Man is standing on the right hand of Elohim.
So he's not showing fear. He knows he's about to go, and he's standing tall. Standing 10 toes down, and he's saying, like, I'm gonna go through this for the sake of my Lord, and it's gonna be counted as righteous. He knows what's to come. Go ahead.
Then they cried out with a loud voice and stopped their ears and ran upon him with one accord and cast him out of the city and stoned him. And the witnesses laid down their clothes at a young man's feet, whose name was Saul. And they stoned Stephen, calling upon Elohim and saying, Master Yahushua, receive my Ruach. And he kneeled down and cried with a loud voice, Master, lay not this sin to their charge. And when he had said this, he fell asleep.
Right, he fell asleep. So he took his punishment, even though he didn't deserve the punishment. And he ended up going. He know that he was destined for the kingdom. It's like when you see most of the apostles, their courage comes from the fact that they know that, hey, we got something coming after this. And that's how we have to be. Just imagine being in this situation and say if we was one of the apostles that was raised up by the Mashiach, we have to have that same courage. We have to walk our walk daily with that same type of courage. All right? Not being afraid to talk about the Most High, because we may be in the midst of certain individuals that don't necessarily believe in Him. We have to make sure that we are upholding His name wherever we at. All right? Let's go to Acts 9 and 19.
Acts chapter 9 and verse 19. And when he had received meat, he was strengthened. Then was Saul certain days with the disciples which were at Damascus.
At this time, you got Paul, who's now converted. All right, he's chosen to spread the gospel to Gentiles. He's chosen to spread the gospel to kings and the children of Israel, and he's now a believer based on his encounter on the way to Damascus with Mashiach. Right? Go ahead.
Verse 20. And straightway he preached Mashiach in the synagogues, that he is the Son of Elohim. But all that heard him were amazed and said, Is not this he that destroyed them which called on this name in Jerusalem, and came hither for that intent, that he might bring them bound unto the chief priest? But Saul increased.
Go ahead.
But Saul increased the more in strength, and confounded the Jews which dwelt at Damascus, proving that this is the very Hamashiach. And after that, many days were fulfilled, the Jews took counsel to kill him.
Listen at that. They took counsel to kill him due to the fact that he changed and is now not having the same type of conversation as them, right? So when we first come off into this walk, and we have this new person, Zeal, and we try to show our family or our friends what we have now found, they look at us like we crazy. All right, and they're not willing to accept that people can change. I know I went through it, and a lot of my family don't talk to me now. But does that mean we go backwards and we slip out of the faith? We keep going, right? All right, we have to be 10 toes down, ready for whatever. All right, regardless of if our family leave us because we chose a new walk or not. All right, go ahead.
And after that, many days were fulfilled, the Jews took counsel to kill him, but their laying await was known of Saul, and they watched at the gates day and night to kill him. Then the disciples took him by night and let him down by the wall in a basket. And when Saul was come into Jerusalem, he essayed to join himself to the disciples, but they were all afraid of him and believed not that he was a disciple.
That's it right there. Go to Acts 13 and 42.
Acts chapter 13 and verse 42. And when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them the next Shabbat. Now, when the congregation was broken up, many of the Jews and the religious proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, persuaded them to continue in grace of Elohim. And the next Shabbat day came almost the entire city together to hear the words of Elohim. But when the Jews saw the multitude, they were filled with envy and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming. Then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said, It was necessary that the word of Elohim should first have been spoken to you, but seeing you put it from you and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles.
So the Jews, most of the Jews rejecting the gospel, now Paul is deciding to turn to the Gentiles, which he was already put over that ministry in the first place, but it was always necessary to go to the Jews who needed to be delivered from the curses. So he had to go to them first, and then to the Gentiles who was willing to make a change based on what they heard. Keep reading.
And when the Gentiles heard this, they were glad and esteemed the word of Yahuwah, and as many as were ordained to eternal life believed. And the word of Yahuwah was published throughout all the region. But the Jews stirred up the devout and honorable women and the chief men of the city, and raised persecution against Paul and Barnabas, and expelled them out of the coast. But they shook off the dust of their feet against them, and came unto Iconium.
Right, that's it. So when Paul and Barnabas witnessed that, and when they wasn't accepted, they was cast out of the land, and they decided to go into Iconium, and pretty much doing what Mashiach had told him to do. When you're not accepted in this city, shake the dust of your feet and go into the next one, right? But never to give up preaching this gospel, all right? Acts 14:1.
Acts chapter 14 and verse 1. And it came to pass in Iconium that they went both together into the synagogue of the Jews, so spake that a great multitude both of the Jews and also of the Greeks believed. But the unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles and made their minds evil affected against the brethren. Long time therefore abode they, speaking boldly in the Master, which gave testimony unto the word of his grace, and granted signs and wonders to be done by their hands. But the multitude of the city was divided, and part held with the Jews, and part with the apostles. And when there was an assault made both of the Gentiles and also of the Jews with their rulers to use them despitefully and to stone them, they were aware of it, and fled unto Lysteria and Derbe, cities of Lycaonia, and unto the region that lieth round about.
All right, that's it on that. So they went to Iconium. They made this attempt to teach them the gospel. You had some believing at first, until you had the Jews that didn't believe, that stirred up, and they overcame, and they had the upper hand in this particular situation and caused these Gentiles not to believe. All right, that still doesn't cause Paul and Barnabas to stop spreading the gospel. It can be discouraging when you have situations like that happen, when nobody hears you. Think about how we go to our family and they look at us like we crazy, all right, because we now choosing a different walk. They now don't want to deal with you. But we can't get discouraged because of that situation. We have to know, we have to have confidence in ourselves that we're choosing the right path, and we have to keep going. All right. Let's see. Let's go to Exodus 3:1.
Exodus chapter 3 and verse 1. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, and the priest of Midian, and led the flock of the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of Elohim, even to Horeb. And the Malachim of Yahuwah appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed.
Right. So at this time, Moses has been living outside of Egypt. He is living with Jethro, his father-in-law, and he is taking care of his flock. And he's now come into Mount Oreb and see this, what appears to be a miracle. You see this burning bush, and the bush is not burning. And so then he's now getting ready to get selected to deliver the children of Israel out of captivity, right? So let's go to, slide down to verse 6.
Verse 6. Moreover, he said, I am Elohim of thy fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon Elohim. And Yahuwah said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land into a good land, and a large unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites.
These are all nations that's at this point living in the land, that once we get ready to go into the land, we're being prepared in the wilderness not to mix in with these people. The Most High wants us to utterly destroy these nations. Not every nation, these nations right here, because of how they live. All right, sometimes people misinterpret this and say, well, he wanted us not to deal with any other nations at all. Well, no, he wanted us not to deal with these particular nations because of how they was living in the land. Right? Go ahead.
Verse 9. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come up unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said unto Elohim, Who am I, that I should go unto Pharaoh, that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt?
So that's Moses showing lack of courage, and he don't understand why he's being chosen. But let's see what the Most High do.
And he said, Certainly I will be with you.
So certainly I will be with thee. See that? There you go again. He's sending somebody on a mission, but before he sent them on a mission, he's giving them that encouragement, like, I'm going to be with thee. All right? Go ahead.
And he said, Certainly I will be with you, and this shall be a token unto you that I have sent you. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, you shall serve Elohim upon this mountain.
All right, go to chapter 4 and verse 1.
Exodus chapter 4 and verse 1. And Moses answered and said, But, behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, Yahuwah have not appeared unto you. And Yahuwah said unto him, What is in thy hand? And he said, A rod.
So now Moses is still in disbelief. And now the Most High is going to give him some miracles to show the children of Israel to build their faith. In some instances, you will see courage and faith kind of intertwine with each other and working together. And especially in the situation where he get ready to deliver them. All right? Go ahead.
Verse 3. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it. And Yahuwah said unto Moses, Put forth your hand and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob, have appeared unto you.
So that's one miracle. Let's see another one.
Verse 6. And Yahuwah said furthermore unto him, Put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, Put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again. And he plucked it out of his bosom. And behold, it was turned again as of the flesh.
Right. So you see Moses now being given this other miracle, and he put his hand into his bosom and took it out. It was white and leprous, but then he put it back in, and it was like the other flesh. Right. Read.
Verse 8. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe you, neither hearken to your voice, the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign.
Right. So let's go to Numbers 14. So before he sends whoever he chose, before he sent them on a mission, he always encouraged them in a certain way. Or he built their faith up by giving them miracles. All right. Numbers 14 and verse 1.
Numbers chapter 14 and verse 1. And all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron. And the whole congregation said unto them, Would Elohim that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would Elohim we had died in this wilderness?
Hold on. So here's the scenario. You got, at this point, they just went into, sorry about that. At this point, sorry about that. At this very point, they had just went into the land of Canaan, and they saw that these was giants. So they was in fear. But Joshua and Caleb were the only two that showed courage, right? So this is why they're crying out and they speaking against the Most High at this point because they see that they have these giant men and everybody is bigger than them. So they are afraid to go into the land now. So let's see what happened.
Verse 3. And wherefore have Yahuwah brought us unto this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and our children should be a prey? Were it not better for us to return into Egypt? And
they wanted to return into Egypt where they was getting oppressed. All right, he delivered them out of oppression so that they can have their own land. So it shows you their lack of faith to the point where they really willing to return back into the same situation they just came out of because of their lack of faith. All right, go ahead.
Verse 4. And they said one to another, let us make a captain, and let us return into Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel, and Joshua the son of Nun, and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, which were of them that searched the land, rent their clothes. And they spake unto all the company of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to search it, it is an exceeding good land.
So this is Joshua and Caleb. They believe that the land is exceedingly good. And let's see what else they say.
If Yahuwah delight in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it us, a land which floweth with milk and honey. Only rebel not ye against Yahuwah, neither fear ye the people of the land, for they are bread for us.
So they are bread for us. This is how confident Joshua and Caleb is. All right, these giants that's in the land, they said that they are bread for us, right? Not showing any fear at all because they have confidence in Yah, while the others are showing lack of confidence. Go ahead.
For they are bread for us. Their defense is departed from them, and Yahuwah is with us. Fear them not.
So Yahuwah is with them. Fear him not. Verse 10.
But all the congregation bade stoned them. Stoned them with stones.
So they wanted to stone Joshua and Caleb because of their courage. Now how was that? We have all these miracles at this point. They're in the wilderness. They saw all these miracles, and they are not willing to stand up and fight and take the land. And they don't understand how powerful Yahuwah can be. All right, so they are like, well, we're going to stone y'all with stones because we just don't believe that. And that's what's going on. So keep reading.
But all the congregation bade stoned them with stones, and the esteem of Yahuwah appeared in the tabernacle of the congregation before all the children of Israel.
Skip down to verse 19.
Verse 19. Pardon, I beseech you, the iniquity of this people, according unto thy greatness of mercy.
Now, this is Moses speaking. He had to intervene because what the Most High wanted to do was build a nation through him, right? But Moses intervened and told him that that wouldn't be a good idea, that it would defile his name to destroy these people after he just delivered them out of Egypt, right? Go ahead.
Pardon, I beseech you, the iniquity of this people, according unto the greatness of mercy, and as thou hast forgiven this people from Egypt, even until now. And Yahuwah said, I have pardoned according to thy word.
So Yahuwah listened to him and pardoned their iniquity. Go ahead.
But as truly as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the esteem of Yahuwah, because all these men which have seen my esteem and my miracles which I did in Egypt and in the wilderness have tempted me now these 10 times, and have not hearkened unto my voice. Surely they shall not see the land which I swear unto their fathers, neither shall any of them that provoke me see it. But my servant Caleb, because he had another ruach with him, and have followed me fully, him will I bring into the land whereunto he went, and his seed shall possess it.
Go to verse 30.
Doubtless you shall not come into the land concerning which I swear to make you dwell therein, save Caleb the son of that name, and Joshua, the son of Nun,
Right.
but your little one.
That's it. So Caleb, Joshua and Caleb, because of their courage, the reward for them is being able to go into the land. All right. The rest of the people show no courage. They show fear. And when you show fear, you show lack of faith in Yah. All right. Because you don't believe that he can deliver you out of a situation. And so he didn't reward them by allowing them to go into the land. And instead, he only allowed Joshua and Caleb from that generation to go into the land. All right. So go to Genesis 22 and 1.
What verse?
22 and verse 1. I'm sorry, Genesis chapter 22 and verse 1.
Genesis chapter 22 and verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that Elohim did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abram. And he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which I will tell you.
So he's going to offer his only son, or who the Most High considers his only son, which is Isaac. All right? And he's telling them to offer him up for a burnt offering. Go ahead.
Verse 3. And Abram rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son, and clave to the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which Elohim had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abram lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abram said unto the young men, Abide ye here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offerings and laid it upon Isaac his son, and took fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abram his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, Behold, the fire, the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abram said, My son, Elohim will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. And they came to the place which Elohim had told him of. And Abram built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abram stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And Amalekim of Yahuwah called unto him out of Shamaim, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he says, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest Elohim, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me.
Let's stop right there. So Abraham showed tremendous faith and courage by going and getting ready to offer up his son, his only son. All right, because remember, he had sent Ishmael away, and he was getting ready to offer up Isaac, and he was stopped midway as he was getting ready to kill him. And the Most High saw, he looked at that as righteousness because of that bold act. Again, him showing, and in this particular case, you see faith and courage working together, because on one hand, you see him having faith in the Most High enough to go and offer his son up, his only son. He didn't show fear. That's the courage, because he didn't even know if the Most High would intervene or not. He just was doing it out of sheer faith, because he saw where the Most High had taken him thus far. All right, the Most High called him out of the land of Ur, brought him into a land and gave him a promise that his seed would dwell there. All right, the Most High the whole time had been taking care of him up until he was in his hundreds. And now when he bring his son, now he telling him to bring his son to offer him up, he went right ahead and did it. Of course, he didn't know that the Most High was going to intervene and tell him not to do it. The Most High was just trying him to see if he would actually do it, right? So go to Joshua 1 and 5.
Joshua chapter 1 and verse 5. There shall not any man be able to stand before you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so will I be with you. I will not fail thee, nor forsake you.
Now here we go again. You see Joshua being sent on a mission. Now what is his mission? Well, after Moses is passed away, Joshua is in his seat now, all right? And he's getting ready to actually lead the children of Israel into the land, all right? And so he was chosen after Moses had sinned while he was in the wilderness with the children of Israel. And he's encouraging Joshua, and he's saying, hey, listen, I will be with thee. Just like he told Moses before Moses went and delivered the children of Israel out of Egyptian captivity, that I will be with thee. He hears Joshua now receiving that same speech. All right, go ahead.
Verse 6. Be strong and of good courage.
Be strong and of good courage.
For unto this people shalt thou divide an inheritance, the land which I swear unto their fathers to give them. Only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Turn not from it, from the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest.
So he's telling them, as long as you remain obedient, you don't have to worry about anything. All right, just remain obedient, and I got you. Go ahead.
This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then shalt thou make thy way prosperous, and then shalt thou have good success. Have not I commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for Yahuwah thy Elohim is with you, whithersoever thou goest.
Right there. So encouraging Joshua before he go on his mission to take the children of Israel into the land. Now, taking the children of Israel into the land is not just taking them into the land, but it's also going to war with the inhabitants of the land to clear it out. All right, which can be dangerous, but of course, again, YAH has his backing. All right, give me 1 Samuel 17 and 31.
Samuel 13?
Yeah, 1 Samuel 17 and 31.
First Samuel chapter 17 and verse 31. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul and sent for him. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with the Philistine, this Philistine.
Now this Philistine they're talking about is Goliath at this point. David has already been anointed king, and he went down to check on his brothers. His father sent him down to check on his brothers, and he sees this Philistine. This Philistine is considered a giant and a man of war, right? So David, having the courage that he have, even though he's nothing but a youth, but he had the courage to go up against this Philistine and deliver Israel out from amongst the Philistines' hand. So go ahead and keep reading.
And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, thy servant, keep his father's sheep. And there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living Elohim.
So he is standing up for the armies of the living Elohim. And his resume is he killed the lion and he killed the bear while rescuing the lambs from them, right? Go ahead.
David said, moreover, Yahuwah, that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, go, and Yahuwah be with you.
Slide down to verse 42.
Verse 42. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, and ruddy, and of a fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog, that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said unto David, come to me, and I will give thy flesh into the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field.
So this Philistine, Goliath, is not taking David serious, all right, due to his size and the fact that he's a young man, all right? But the Most High can infuse a man with his spirit and turn him into a whole different person through his guidance. And let's see how he used David. Go ahead.
Verse 45. Then said David to the Philistine, thou comest to me with swords and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of Yahuwah Elohim of hosts, the Elohim of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will Yahuwah deliver you into mine hands, and I will smite you and take thy head from thee.
Notice how he said Yahuwah will deliver you into my hand. It's not he's just going to go up against him. It's going to be Yahuwah that's going to actually do this work. Right? Go ahead.
And I will give thy carcasses to the host of the Philistines this day, unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is an Elohim in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that Yahuwah saveth, not with the sword and spear, for the battle is Yahuwah's, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to pass when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hastened and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand into his bag and took thence a stone and slang it and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with the sling and with the stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him, but there was no sword in his hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword and drew it out of his sheath thereof, and slew him and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled.
So when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. All right. David, coming in the name of Yahuwah, backed by Yahuwah, he came against the Philistine, did not have a sword, and shot a sling and hit him in his head, and he fell over. And then he took his own sword out of the sheath and cut his head with his own sword. Right? Because the battle was already given, it was already Yahuwah's. It was given into David's hand. All he had to do is go through with the act of going to battle with this Philistine. Right? So next, let's go to Judges 6:1.
Judges chapter 6 and verse 1. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah delivered them into the hand of the Midian 7 years. And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel because of the Midianites. The children of Israel made them dens which are in the mountains, and caves and strongholds. And so it was when Israel had sown that the Midianites came up, and the Amalekites and the children of the east, even they came up against them.
So they had many enemies that come up against them. It wasn't only Midian. Midian was leading the way, but it was the Amalekites and the children of the east. All right, go ahead.
And they encamped against them and destroyed the increase of the earth, till thou come unto Gaza, and left no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep nor ox nor a donkey. For they came up with their cattle and their tents, and they came as locusts or grasshoppers for multitude, for both they and their camels were without number, and they entered into the land to destroy it. And Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites, and the children of Israel cried unto Yahuwah. And it came to pass when the children of Israel...
Slide down to verse 12.
Verse 12. And the Malachim of Yahuwah appeared unto him, and said unto him, Yahuwah is with you, thou mighty man of valor. And Gideon said unto him, Oh, my master, if Yahuwah be with us, why then is all this befallen us? And where be all his miracles, which our fathers told us of, saying, Did not Yahuwah bring us up from Egypt? But now Yahuwah hath forsaken us, and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites?
Right, so Gideon is asking, if Yahuwah be with us, why is it that we are suffering how we suffer? All right, and the angel is letting him know that Yahuwah is with him. Get ready again, just like he did with Joshua and with Moses, to encourage him to go out and do his will, which is to deliver the children of Israel out of this bondage from the Midianites, the Amalekites, and the children of the east. But first he have to, put something in him to go forward. He have to encourage him to go and do this. Go ahead.
Verse 14. And Yahuwah looked upon him and said, Go in this thy might, and thou shalt save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have not I sent you?
So have not I sent thee? All right. So just like he said to Moses, and just like he said to Joshua, have not I sent thee? All right. Meaning that whatever I send out there, as long as it's obedient to me, we gonna win, hands down. The battle is mine. Go ahead.
And he said unto him, O my master, wherewith shall I save Israel? Behold, my family is poor in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. And Yahuwah said unto him, Surely I will be with you, and you shall smite the Midianites as one man.
You shall smite the Midianites as one man. You see that? You shall smite the Midianites as one man, giving them that courage to go out there and do his will. Go down to verse 25.
And it came to pass the same night that Yahuwah said unto him, Take thy father's young bullock, even the second bullock of 7 years old, and throw down the altars of Baal that thy fathers have and cut down the groves that is by it, and build an altar unto Yahuwah thy Elohim upon the rock of this rock in the ordered place, and take the second bullock, and offer a burnt sacrifice with the wood of the grove which thou shalt cut down. Then Gideon took 10 men of his servants, and did as Yahuwah had said unto him. And so it was, because he feared his fathers, the household, and the men of the city, that he could not do it by day, and he did it by night.
So he's going through with the Most High's mission. He's cutting this altar down, and he's going to offer a burnt sacrifice on the altar, on the wood of the altar that he just cut down. And he feared his father's house, so he went and did it by night. But it still can be consequences. It's just that he didn't want to get caught doing this, so But in a situation like this, you see the courage that the Most High stored in him, and now he's going on a mission to complete the Most High's will, right? Keep reading.
Verse 28. And when the men of the city arose early in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was cast down, and the grove was cut down that was by it. And the second bullock was offered upon the altars that was built. And they said one to another, Who have done this thing? And when they inquired and asked, they said, Gideon, the son of Joash, have done this thing. Then the men of the city said unto Joash, Bring out thy son, that he may die, because he have cast down the altars of Baal, and because he have cut down the groves that was by him.
So look at the heart of these men. Now, we know that Gideon is righteous, but look at these men that's living in this city. Remember, this land was given to them by the Most High. So it shows you that they have completely forgot the law of YAH. They forgot the Torah. They commit idolatry. They want to kill Gideon because he did something that he was supposed to do that's actually written in the law, which was cast down any idols and destroy any altars that's given to any idols. And look at them. And they want to kill him because he done this. Go ahead.
Verse 31. And Joash said unto all that stood against him, Will you plead for Baal? Will you save him? He that will plead for him, let him be put to death while it is yet morning. If it be of God, let him plead for himself.
If it be a God, this false thing, if it be a God, let him plead for himself. Go ahead.
Because one hath cast down his altars. Therefore on that day he called him Zerubbabel, saying, Let Baal plead against him, because he hath thrown down his altar. Then on the Midianites.
That's it right there. So now we know that Gideon, this story is a little long, so I didn't go all the way into it, but we know that Gideon, this was the start of him completing that mission. We know that Gideon took thousands of men, then those men was cut down to 300. Those 300 men overthrew the children of the east, the Amalekites, and the Midianites, who was uncountable when they came up against the children of Israel. All right, it was all because Gideon accepted the mission. He was encouraged by the Most High, and he decided to go forth and complete the mission. All right, 1 Kings 18 and 17.
First Kings chapter 18 and verse 17. Thou therefore gird up thy loins and arise and speak unto them all that I command thee. Be not dismayed at their faces, lest I confound you before.
No. First Kings 18 and 17.
Got the remix. First Kings what?
18 and verse 17.
Salakia. First Kings chapter 18 and verse 17. And it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, Art thou he that troubleth Israel? And he answered, I am not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, in that ye have forsaken the commandments of Yahuwah, and has followed Baalim. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal 450, and of the prophets of the groves 400, which eat at Jezebel's table.
So look at this. Now you got Ahab, who's the king of Israel. He's the king of Israel at this time, and he's married to Jezebel. And you got Elijah, who's going to now put the prophets of Baal through this test. All right, let's see what happened.
Verse 21. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, How long halt you between two opinions? If Yahuwah be Elohim, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him, not a word.
Right, so these people is caught between two opinions. They not really sure who they want to follow. Some of them is following Baal. Some of them is following the Most High. And so now it's time to put this thing to the test. Let's see who's the real power. Go ahead.
Verse 22. Then said Elijah unto the people, I, even I only, remain a prophet of Yahuwah, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bullocks, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on the wood, and put no fire under it. And I will dress the other bullock, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under it. And call ye on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of Yahuwah, and the Elohim that answereth by fire, let him be Elohim. And all the people answered and said, it is well spoken.
And so they accepted the challenge. All right, let's see what happened now.
And Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, choose you 1 bullock for yourselves, and dress it first, for you are many and call on the name of your gods, but put no fire under it. And they took the bullock which was given them, and they dressed it, and called on the name of Baal from morning even unto noon, saying, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, nor any that answered. And they leaped upon the altar which was made. And it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them, and said, cry aloud, for he is an Elohim.
So he mocking them. He's saying, cry aloud. Now, Elijah, of course, knows that this is not a real God, but he's trying to really show them, like, listen, your God has nothing on mountains, and this God that you're serving will not answer you. There's no spirit in him. All right, so he doing this knowing what it is. Go ahead.
For he is either talking or pursuing, or he is in a journey. Peradventure he sleepeth, and must be awakened. And they cried aloud, and cut themselves after the manner with knives and lances, till the blood gushed out upon them.
Look what all they got to do for their God, and he's still not going to answer. Go ahead.
And it came to pass, when midday was past, and they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that there was neither voice, nor any to answer, nor any that regarded. And Elijah said unto all the people, come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him, and repaired him, and he repaired the altar of Yahuwah that was broken down. And Elijah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, unto whom the word of Yahuwah came, saying, Israel shall be thy name. And when the stones he built an altar in the name of Yahuwah, and made a trench about the altar as great wood contained 2 measures of seed. And he put the wood in order, and cut the bullock in pieces, and laid him on the wood, and said, fill 4 barrels with water, and pour it on the burnt sacrifice on the wood. And he said, do it the 2nd time. And they did it the 2nd time. And he said, do it the 3rd time. And they did it the 3rd time. And the water ran round about the altar, and he filled the trench also with water. And it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that Elijah the prophet came near and said, Yahuwah Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known this day that you are Elohim of Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all these things at your word. Hear me, O Yahuwah, hear me, that this people may know that thou art Elohim, that you are Yahuwah Elohim, and you has turned their hearts back again. Then the fire of Yahuwah fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice, and the wood, and the stone, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench.
So you see that this is the truth. They see now that this is the true living power. And so let's see what happens to them after this, because they are now like it's like they had to cut themselves just to get their God to respond. But God didn't respond. All Elijah did was offer the sacrifice and cry out to Yahuwah, and then he came down and accepted the sacrifice, and he responded. So now let's see what happens to the people, because really this test was for the prophets, but it was more for the common people that was torn between the two opinions. All right, so let's see what happened.
And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces and said, Yahuwah, he is Elohim. Yahuwah, he is Elohim. And Elijah said unto them, take the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook of Kishon and slew them there.
So he slew the prophets. All right. Now, was he credible enough to do this? Was he supposed to do this? Yeah, of course he was supposed to do this, because they was false prophets. Let's go to Deuteronomy 18 and 20. At that moment, he acted as a judge. Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 20.
Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 20. But the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other Elohims, even that prophet shall die.
Y'all see that? Now in this case, with Elijah and the 450 prophets of Baal, it was 450 of them. But nevertheless, they were supposed to be put to death. All right? Any prophet that speak in his name and he haven't sent them, or that has been a prophet for other gods, they should be sentenced to death. So he was right in that case. That was righteous judgment.
So this is a good reason why not to say that YAH told me to say something. You know what I'm saying? This is a real good reason not to say, yeah, he told me to tell you this. Because if you lying, this is your punishment. You will never hear us say, YAH told me to tell you this. Right?
Good point. Very good point. We're going to go to 2 Chronicles 26 and verse 1. Second Chronicles chapter 26 and verse 1.
Second Chronicles chapter 26 and verse 1. Then all the people of Judah took Uzziah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in the room of his father Amaziah, and he built a loft and restored it to Judah. And after that the king slept with his fathers. 16 years old was Uzziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Jecoliah of Jerusalem.
Right. So Uzziah was a king in Jerusalem. At this time, the northern and southern kingdom is split, and he's standing up in the stead of his father. All right. Let's go ahead.
And he did that which was right in the sight of Yahuwah, according to all that his father Amaziah did.
So his father was righteous, and he started off righteous. Go ahead.
And he sought Elohim in the days of Zechariah, who had understanding in the visions of Elohim. And as long as he sought Yahuwah, Elohim made him to prosper. And he went forth and warred against the Philistines, and brake down the walls of Gath, and the walls of Jabneh, and the well of Ashdod, and built cities about Ashdod and among the Philistines. And Elohim helped him against the Philistines and against the Arabians that dwelt in Jerubbaal and Mehuhim.
Right. Go to verse 16. So he was righteous. Uzziah was righteous. He started off righteous. But let's see what happens. Something happens to Uzziah. Go slide over to verse 16.
Verse 16. But when he was strong, his heart was lifted up.
What is that called? Pride. Go ahead.
But when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction. For he transgressed against Elohim, against Yahuwah his Elohim, and went into the temple of Yahuwah to burn incense upon the altar of incense. And Azariah the priest went in after him.
Now check this out. This is where you're going to see the boldness in YAH. All right. Azariah the priest. Let's see what he do.
And Azariah the priest went in after him, and with 80 priests of Yahuwah that were valiant men.
Right, these men was brave. All right, and also Azariah the high priest was brave. Go ahead.
And they withstood Uzziah the king and said unto him, It appertaineth not unto you, Uzziah, to burn incense unto Yahuwah, but to the priests, the sons of Aaron, that are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for thou hast trespassed, neither shall it be for thine honor from Yahuwah Elohim.
So right, they chastising him now, letting him know that you out of order. We are only supposed to offer up in a temple to the Most High, not you. All right, regardless of if he's the king or not. And so you got to think about that. Like sometimes it's going to take for us, even if we at our job, like to chastise somebody in a way, not disrespect them, but chastise them and let them know that they wrong in a way. I know that me myself, small testimony, like I have had to tell my supervisor about it, so because he think because he's in a position he can talk to me any kind of way, and I'm not that type of guy that will allow that, you know. But I've toned down a lot and I've corrected my ways a lot, but I'm just not the type of guy that's going to let you disrespect me. And hey, you know, it is what it is. You have to stand 10 toes down like a man and not let nobody talk to you any kind of way, but respect their position at the same time. All right, and that's what I see here. I see, but even though the high priest, they're the most important, but this is still the king of Israel, and he's anointed as well, and they have to let him know his wrong. Right? Keep reading.
Verse 19. Then Uzziah was wroth, and had a censer in his hand to burn incense. While he was wroth with the priest, the leprosy even arose upon his forehead before the priest in the house of Yahuwah, from beside the incense altar. And Azariah the chief priest and all the priests looked upon him, and behold, he was leprous in his forehead, and they thrust him out from thence. Yea, himself hastened also to go out, because Yahuwah hath smitten him.
Right, that's it right there. So Yahuwah has smitten him because he sinned. He tried to go in and offer the sacrifice in the temple, and he was not ordaining to do that. It was only the priest and the high priest that could make that move. And they stood to him. They stood up to him and 80 valiant men, right? And they threw him out once he became leprous. But he became leprous because he sinned. And they didn't care that he was King Uzziah. They didn't care that he had done so many wonderful things in Israel. All they cared about was enduring and maintaining and upholding the law of YAH. And they threw him out because he was out of order. Let's go to Daniel 1. Well, first go to Proverbs 28 and 1.
Proverbs chapter 28 and verse 1. The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion.
The righteous are bold as a lion. And then you saw that in the situation with, you know, King Uzziah and High Priest Azariah. All right, not necessarily that he fled, but they stood bold as a lion. All right, they didn't allow him because of his position to come in and do something that was unlawful. All right, go to Daniel 1 and 8.
Daniel chapter 1 and verse 8. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the princes of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself.
Hold on right there. Go to Proverbs 23 and 1. Let's see why he's doing this. All right. Daniel is now in captivity. And in this situation, when you're being oppressed, it's easy for you to veer away from principles and go ahead and do something that you normally would not do. You know, it's easy for most people, but some people stand strong. Go ahead and read that.
23 what?
23 and 1, and read to verse 3.
Proverbs chapter 23 and verse 1. When thou sittest to eat with a ruler, consider diligently what is before you, and put a knife to thy throat, if thou be a man given to appetite. Be not desirous of his dainties, for they are deceitful meat. Labor not.
That's it. Yeah. So Daniel understood that, and he applied that to this situation here. He decided not to eat the king's meat, and instead, let's see what happens. Go back to verse 9. Daniel 1 and 9.
Daniel chapter 1 and verse 9. Now Elohim have brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the princes of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my master, the king, who have appointed your meat and your drink. But why should he see your face worse likening than the children which are of your sort? Then shall ye make me endanger my head to the king.
So the prince of the eunuchs is worried about the eunuchs not looking healthy. So he's saying, hey, you need to eat this meat, or you're gonna start looking a certain way, and then the king is gonna have an art with me. All right, go ahead.
Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, prove thy servant, I beseech you, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Then let our countenance be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat. And as thou seest, deal with thy servant. So he consented to them in the matter, and proved them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat.
Right. So now Daniel, number one, showed courage in not eating the king's meat. All right. He decided that, hey, I'm not going to eat this abominable food from the king, and plus his deceitful meat. He understood what was written in Proverbs. Let's see something. Let's make a comparison. Go to 2 Kings 25 and 27. Every Jew didn't have this courage, though. It's like I mentioned earlier. When you're getting oppressed, many people cannot stand the test of time and uphold the principles that they once upheld when they was living in freedom. So let's see. 2 Kings, 25 and 27.
2 Kings chapter 25 and verse 27. And it came to pass in the 7th and 30th year of the captivity of Jehoiakim, king of Judah.
Jehoiakim was one of the kings. He was one of the last kings that was ruling when Nebuchadnezzar came in and took the southern kingdom into captivity. Okay, let's see what happened with him.
In the 12th month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, that evil Mordecai, king of Babylon, in the year that he began to reign, did lift up the head of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, out of prison. And he spake kindly to him, and set his throne above the throne of the kings that were with him in Babylon, and changed his prison garments. And he did eat bread continuously before him all the days of his life.
So he's eating from the king's table. He said, I'm getting oppressed. I've been in prison this whole time. I'm going to go ahead and eat this bread. Versus Daniel, who was a eunuch, he was getting oppressed just like King Jehoiakim. And he decided to uphold those principles that he was upholding when he was living in Israel. And he said, I'm not going to eat the king's bread. All right? Just to show you that because we had you had certain Israelites that veered away once they were starting to get oppressed, versus some that actually stayed with the same principles, especially when they went into Babylon. And in Jeremiah, some of them built houses, but some of them still kept, the laws of YAH. They made livings there, but they never went and dealt with the Gentiles and how they lived. But some of them did, though. Go back to, let's see. Go to Daniel 6:3.
Daniel chapter 6 and verse 3. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and the princes, because an excellent ruach was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm.
And this is Darius the Mede. At this very point, you have Darius, who's the king of the Medes, and he helped to overthrow Babylon. All right. Well, not overthrow Babylon, but overtake Babylon. He overthrew the king of Babylon. All right. So this is why it's talking about Darius the Mede in Babylon. All right, go ahead.
Verse 4. Then the presidents and the princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could not find none occasion, nor fault, for as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him.
So these men was jealous of Daniel because he was made a ruler over the realm under Darius. Go ahead.
Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his Elohim. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king and said thus unto the king, King Darius, live forever. All the presidents and the kingdom, the governors and the princes and the counselors and the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute and have made firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any Elohim or man for the 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions.
Right, so they doing all of this because for the sake of trying to entrap Daniel. All right, they see that Daniel has been given a certain position. They jealous and they want that position. So what they gonna do? They gonna make a law that would trip him up against his law, try to get him to at least go against his law, right? Or he's gonna have to suffer the decree of going into the lion's den. Go ahead.
Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writings, that it be not changed according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which altereth not. Wherefore, King Darius signed the writing and the decree. Now when Daniel...
Now hold on. King Darius was actually in favor of Daniel. So let's see how King Darius realized his mistake after Daniel is caught worshiping his God. Watch this.
Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went in his house, and his windows being opened in his chambers toward Jerusalem.
Anybody know why he's facing Jerusalem? Say that again. Right. So because the Most High Yah name is there, and what happened? What was said for us if we go into captivity? What we were supposed to do? We're supposed to face the temple, right? Right. So that's why he's facing Jerusalem, because they in Babylon and he's facing Jerusalem. Okay. Go ahead.
In Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his Elohim, as he did aforetime.
So this didn't affect his regimen for prayer. All right, he didn't care that a decree was given to trip him up. He was like, I'm still going to serve my God, regardless of the fact. Right? Go ahead.
Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplications before his Elohim. Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Hast thou not signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or man within 30 days, save of you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions, The king answered and said, the thing is true according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not.
So the king is aware of the law, but let's see what happened with Darius the Mede. Let's see how he reacts to Daniel. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Then answered they and said before the king that Daniel, which is of the children of captivity of Judah, regardeth not thee, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but maketh his petition 3 times a day. Then the king, when he heard these words, was sore displeased with himself, and sat in his heart, O Daniel, to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Then these men assembled unto the king and said unto king, now, O king, that the law of the Medes and the Persians is that no decree nor statute which the king established may be changed.
So the Persians and the Medes had a thing where whenever they put something into law, they don't go back on it. All right. So look at, and then you just saw how he kind of mourned for Daniel because he realized that Daniel had got caught up in ensnared in this law. Because he was devout. You know, Daniel was serious about the Most High. And the king knew that and accepted that. But he didn't know the hearts of these men that was willing to make this a decree. That you couldn't serve another God for 30 days. Right? Go ahead.
Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, your Elohim whom you service continuously, he will deliver you. And a stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his masters, and that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him.
So he couldn't even sleep because of this thing, because he favored Daniel. Go ahead.
Verse 19. Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of the lions. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living Elohim, is thy Elohim, whom thou servest continuously, able to deliver you from the lions. Then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever.
Right. So Daniel's still alive. O king, live forever. Right? But Daniel knew that Daniel, with the mercy that he had, he understood that this was a snare for him. All right, and then like he understood that Darius favored him as well. Go ahead.
Verse 22. My Elohim have sent his Malachim and have shut the lion's mouth. They have not hurt me, for as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. Then was the king exceeding glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no matter of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his Elohim.
Because he believed in his Elohim. Right? Go ahead.
And the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives, and the lions had mastery of them, and break all their bones in pieces, or even they came at the bottom of the den.
So after he figured out the hearts of these men, and Daniel survived this, he threw all of those men along with their families and gave the lions a feast because of how their wickedness and what they had caused King Darius to do. All right. Go to Ezekiel 2, chapter 2 and verse 2. So Daniel, the reason we went there is because Daniel showed courage by knowing the decree, and he's still serving his serving YAH. he decided that, hey, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I'm still going to serve Yah. And Yah delivered him out of the mouth of the lions. All right. He did not care that he was in another land and that his nation as a whole had failed to these people. All right. And we have to make sure that we, again, operate with that same type of courage. All right. We have to be bold like that. Go ahead.
Ezekiel 2 and 2.
Yeah, Ezekiel 2 and 2.
Ezekiel chapter 2 and verse 2. And the Ruach entered into me when I spake unto me, and set me upon my feet, that I heard him that spake unto me. Oh, that's the Ruach he said is in him. And the Ruach entered into me when I spake unto me, and he set me upon my feet, that I heard him that spake unto me. And he said unto me, Son of man, I send thee to the children of Israel, to a rebellious nation that have rebelled against me. They and their fathers have transgressed against me, even unto this very day. For they are imputed children and stiff-hearted. I do send thee unto them, and thou shalt say unto them, Thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, and they, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear, for they are a rebellious house, yet shall know that there hath been a prophet among them. And thou, son of man, be not afraid of them, neither be afraid of their words. The briars and thorns be with thee, and thou dost dwell amongst scorpions. Be not afraid of their words, nor dismayed at their looks, though they be a rebellious house. And thou shalt speak
So he's encouraging Ezekiel, just like he did with Moses, Joshua, he did with Gideon. All right. This is a prophet though, but he's still doing the same thing. Whenever he sends somebody on a mission, he encourages them to go and complete that mission, right? So he's telling them what to do and that he will be with them. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And thou shalt speak my words unto them, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear, for they are most rebellious. But thou, son of man, hear what I say unto thee. Be not thou rebellious like that rebellious house. Open thy mouth and eat that I give thee. And when I looked, behold, a hand was sent unto me, and lo, a roll, a book was therein. And he spread it before me, and it was written within and without, and there was written therein lamentations and mournings and woe.
These are the things he's supposed to go and show to the children of Israel. All right, go into chapter 3 and verse 1.
Ezekiel chapter 3 and verse 1. Moreover, he said unto me, Son of man, eat that thou findest, eat this roll, and go speak unto the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth, and he caused me to eat that roll. And he said unto me, Son of man, cause thy belly to eat, and fill thy bowels with this roll that I give thee. Then did I eat it, and it was in my mouth as honey for sweetness. And he said unto me, Son of man, go get thee unto the house of Israel, and speak my words unto them.
Now at this point, the southern kingdom, Ezekiel is in captivity. So he's in captivity with his brothers and his sisters, and they are he's now being raised up as a prophet to go and show whatever's written on that roll, which is mournings and woe, to the children of Israel, right? Go ahead.
For you are sent to a people of a strange speech and of a hard language, but to the house of Israel, not to too many people of a strange speech and of a hard language, whose words thou canst not understand. Surely, had I sent thee to them, they would have hearkened unto you. But the house of Israel will not listen unto you, for they will not listen unto me. For all the house of Israel are imputed and hard-hearted.
So he's sending Ezekiel on a mission and he know for a fact that the children of Israel is not going to listen to him. But it's his job it's the Most High's job to do this, because he wants us, well, not his job, but he's merciful. And so he sends a prophet to his people when they're going out to correct them. And even though he know the hearts of these people, he's like, I'm going to do this anyway just to be merciful. I know y'all not going to listen, but I'm going to do it anyway. And here you go. And they're not going to hear him. Go ahead.
Verse 8, Behold, I have made thy face strong against their faces, and thy forehead strong against their foreheads. As an adamant harder than a flint have I made your forehead. Fear them not, neither be dismayed at their looks, though they be a rebellious house.
Right there, that's it. So he's strengthening them. He's encouraging Ezekiel to go forth and speak to the children of Israel in captivity. All right, he said he made his head harder than an adamant. Anybody know what an adamant is? It's a rock, right? It's a rock. He made his, but what type of rock? Like a gemstone. You see that? So and you look it up in the Hebrew, they say it's like a diamond, right? So a gemstone, a diamond, or something like that. So they made his head harder than a diamond. All right, and what that's a metaphor, because that's just saying that, hey, just they are true. My children is a rebellious house, but even though they're a rebellious house, I'm going to give you the courage necessary to stand up to these people and try to get them to turn away from their sin. All right, go into Luke 13.
What?
13 and verse 10. Luke chapter 13 and verse 10.
Luke chapter 13 and verse 10. And he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And behold, there was a woman which had a ruach of infirmity 18 years, and was bowed together, and could in no wise lift up herself. And when Yahushua saw her, he called her to him, and said unto her, Woman, thou art loose from thine infirmity. And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight, and glorified Yahushua Elohim.
So he healed this woman that had an infirmity for 18 years on the Sabbath day. Let's see how the Jews react at this point after he has healed her. Go ahead.
Verse 14. And the rulers of the synagogue answered with indignation, because that Yahushua had healed on the Shabbat day, and said unto the people, There are 6 days in which men ought to work. In them therefore come and be healed, and not on the Shabbat day.
Now, can anybody tell me what law is that? Where is that written at? Anybody know? It's not written, right?
The book of Deuteronomy.
The book of Deuteronomy. It's not written, right? Say that again. Infirmity, that's like a disease. Like she was sick. Yeah. So, okay, so yeah. So, that's not a law to actually heal somebody on the Sabbath. All right? So, not to be able to heal somebody on the Sabbath. That's not written in the Torah. But it lets you know how far away that the Jews had gotten from the Torah. They started doing their own will. They made their own laws up to benefit them. All right? They called healing somebody work. Right? How is healing somebody work? Yeah, it's work, but it's righteous work. It's not like doing your own will. You're doing the will of the Father. All right? So, what was we at? We was...
Verse 15, Luke.
Luke 13 and 15. Keep reading.
Luke 13:15. The master then answered and said, You hypocrites, do not each one of you on the Shabbat loose his ox or his donkey from the stall and lead him away to water it? And ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan hath bound, lo, these 18 years, be loosed from this bond on the Shabbat day?
So he calling them out. He's saying, y'all loose y'all ox on the Sabbath, but when it comes to healing man, you wouldn't allow that. He calling them some hypocrites, because loosing your ox is actually work, but healing somebody is not actually doing your own will. Go ahead, read verse 17.
And when he had said these things, all his adversaries were ashamed, and all the people rejoiced for all the glorious things that were done by him.
Here's one way that Yeshua showed courage, because again, we have to understand the times that Yeshua had appeared. Yeshua came in a time where the Jews they was slightly upholding Torah, but they was doing their own will. They was making their own laws, right? So when he comes into play now, he started teaching the true doctrine, and they're not with it. It's because they have been doing their own will for so long. All right, Mark 3:1.
Mark chapter 3 and verse 1. And he entered again into the synagogue, and there was a man there which had a withered hand.
So you got a man here with a withered hand. He just healed a woman that had an infirmity of 18 years, and now you have a man here in the synagogue with a withered hand. Go ahead.
And they watched him whether he would heal him on the Shabbat day, that they might accuse him. And he said unto the man which had the withered hand, stand forth. And he said unto them, it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath day, or to do evil, to save life, or to kill. But they held their peace. And when he had looked round about on them with anger, being grieved for the hardness of their hearts, he said unto the man, stretch forth your hand. And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored whole as the other. And the Pharisees went forth and straightway took counsel with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him.
Look at that. Stop here. So they got angry that he healed on the Sabbath day again. And they went to the Gentiles, which was the Herodians, and decided that, hey, we want to kill this guy. All right, but this is their brother, and they'll go to some Gentiles who's not keeping the law at all, and say, okay, yeah, we want to put this man to death. All right, go to John 2:13.
John chapter 2 and verse 13. And when the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Yahushua went up unto Jerusalem, and he found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves and changes of money, sitting. And when he had made a scourge of a small cord, he drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overthrew the tables.
Look what he did. So he put some cords together, went and chastised the money changers in the temple, because he felt that they was defiling the temple by doing business in the temple where it was supposed to be kept holy. They can do business anywhere else, but they decided to do it in the temple, the most holiest place in the land of Israel. Go ahead.
And said unto them that sold doves, take these things hence, make not my Father's house a house of merchandise. And his disciples remembered that it was written, the zeal of thine house have eaten me up.
Right, stop right there. So Yeshua showing zeal in a time and amongst people that don't really have zeal. They pretend to have it, but under their own laws. All right. So go to Matthew 26 and 36. Now, when we talk about courage, sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't fear. All right. What courage or being bold is when you fear and you still go through with something because you see the bigger picture in the matter. All right. And that's the case with Mashiach, what we're about to show right now. Matthew 26. And verse 36.
Matthew chapter 26 and verse 36. Then cometh Yahushua with them unto a place called Gethsemane, and saith unto his disciples, sit you here, while I go and pray over there. And he took him, Peter, and the two sons of Zebedee, and began to be sorrowful and very heavy.
All right, so now at this point, Yeshua, he's getting ready to get crucified. All right, he knows what's coming, and look, let's see what he say to the Most High. Go ahead.
Verse 38. Then saith he unto them, my soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death. Wait ye here and watch with me.
So he was in fear. He was showing fear at this point. All right. That don't mean you don't have courage. We can fear and still go through with something, as long as we use enough reasoning to understand that the bigger picture is to go through with this situation. We may fear, but that don't mean we shy away from the situation, right? Go ahead.
Verse 39. And he went a little further and fell on his face and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. And he cometh unto the disciples, and findeth them asleep, and saith unto Peter, what? Could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray, that you enter not into temptation. The Ruach is indeed willing, but the flesh is weak. He went away again the second time, and prayed, saying, O my Father, if this cup may not pass away from me, except I drink it, thy will be done.
Right, so stop right there. So at this point, the Mashiach is showing fear. But that don't mean he's not going to go through with it. He's asking the Most High to deliver this cup from him. But that's the flesh. But he know for a fact that he have to go through with this, or we will not be delivered out from the bonds of the law. All right, the curses of the law. All right, so he have to go through with this mission. All right. I wanted to just mention real quick. We're about to wrap it up. So today, how can we individually show boldness in YAH? It means to be brave. What else? But how can we do it? How can we apply this? So how can you apply that? How can you be bold and show courage? You mentioned some things like, have you given up those? Have you given up those jobs? You have. So that's an act of courage. You know what I mean? Like, that's one way that you can show courage. It's like you want to serve the Most High. You want to keep the Shabbat. So you decided that, hey, these jobs is not going to allow me to serve Him by keeping the Shabbat. They're not going to give me this day off. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and get me another job. That's an act of courage. Who else? So dressing modest in a world where everything is shown, everything is revealed, everything is tight. You dress modest, they might not like you. They might not accept you because of the way you dress. Right? Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Oh, here. Give it out.
To become dedicated to giving time, tithe, and talent to things that are wholesome and godly in Yah's eyesight.
Use the mic.
From personal experience, being willing to forgive someone or people who goes around you, encourage you to do different because they can't see how you could, and just to practice that, even though it may go against your emotions at first, to push beyond it. I see that as growth when we know what God's word says. And when we first do something that challenges our flesh, instead of just saying, I'm not ready, push beyond it. Although the emotions may not match the act, push beyond it and become stronger. I had a situation back when I was working where at that time I hadn't come into Torah yet, but I knew what the word said about forgiveness. It's not always easy, especially if somebody like, for example, was on my job, kept going against me in front of other people, just terribly unkind, almost like trying to make a point of it. And we had pulled names for people's birthdays, and I was in that kind of thing at that time. I pulled this woman's name. This woman would not give me a ladder. I was a teacher, and I would oftentimes be hanging things up high. She would say she didn't have one, and then she'd give another teacher the same ladder, and all this, and I almost fell off a chair, that kind of stuff. And so I pulled her name, and someone saw this person knew, okay? And I said, no, I'm not going to exchange it, and I just kind of tucked in any personal feelings, and I did the secret birthday thing, and she swore all up and down with somebody else, and I just watched her all day, and at the end of the day, when it came time for me to take stuff down, she almost cussed me out saying, don't touch my stuff. And I was just shaking, and I said, I'm the one that put it up, I bought the cake and the gifts and stuff, so I wasn't bragging, but I felt like I had to tell her at that point, and she didn't know what to do, so we just pushed past it, and Yah blessed, and like 2 years later, she was totally changed from us. I don't know how, but Yah was.
Definitely a way to heap coals of fire on her head. So I just, a way we can be bold. Again, I mentioned this earlier. Once you come into the faith, you're going to have family that's not going to accept you. You're going to have family that's going to have negative things to say. They're going to bring up your past, all right, like they did with Paul. Remember when Paul first was converted, he went into the synagogue, and they was like, isn't this the guy that was just persecuting the church? So we go through that when we first come into this walk. And we have to be strong enough to sustain the closest individuals speaking against us. Because now that our conversation is not the same, you know what they're going to do? They're going to disassociate themselves from us, and they're going to not want anything to do with us. As a matter of fact, let's go to Hebrews. We'll wrap it up with this. 1 Peter 4 and 3. 4 and 4. I'm sorry. 1 Peter 4 and 4.
First Peter chapter 4 and verse 4, wherein they think it strange that ye run not with them to the same excess or riot, speaking evil of you.
So they're going to think it's strange when we're not running to the same excess of riot, and they'll speak evil of us, right? And guess what? That's going to be your family in your household that's doing that. real quick, go to Matthew 10 and verse 34. Our conversation is not the same. They're going to disassociate themselves from us because they think that us being good or us choosing another path is not within their program, and so it goes against what they believe. They think we're going to always try to hit them over the head with the Bible, and it might not be like that, but because they don't know any better, and so they're going to stick to what they know.
Matthew 10:34. Think not that I am come to send peace on the earth. I came not to send shalom, but a sword.
Right, that's division. Go ahead.
For I am come to set a man in variance against his father, and the daughter, and against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foe shall be they of his own household.
And a man's foe shall be they of his own household. Now, are we going to have courage when we start going through that? All right? Your mother hates you, or your mother dislikes you because you decided that you don't want to live the same, or you have your closest friends and family that don't accept you because you decide to go a different path. We still got to uphold, we got to still be bold. All right? We have to know for a fact that what we choosing is the right path. All right? And with that, I digress and I say shalom.
Questions, comments, concerns, anything, you love it, you hate it, teach that again, don't teach that again, do it again next week. That's all good.
Really appreciate the lesson. That's something to deal with my family and one right now. Particularly my mother's really upset about me being here. She's President Gideon. She's a physician by trade, and my mom only child, so she's freaking out. She's totally upset. She texted me. She hasn't texted me that much this week, but yesterday she said, be intelligent. Don't do that. But it's not man's intelligence that I'm standing on. It's the wisdom of God. We have to do. As much as it hurts me to see her and my family upset. Oh, you're gonna die. But no, we have to be bold with that. And that really, you were saying that it was just encouraging me that we need to go forward and keep standing on, just to know that with God. I'm making it. I'm not wishing anything on anybody. I'm not saying, I'm going to do this, but I trust Yah through it all. So I just appreciate the words of encouragement, to be bold. We have to put that in. I think if we stand, that may be a way to draw some of them in because they see, you're not wavering, you're never going to change, and keep them and move myself in prayer because they're just that. That's what the Bible are. It's been weighing on me a lot. Stand and believe what I believe.
Praise Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Anybody else have any comments?
I just have one comment.
Okay.
This title is boldness in God to have it. That's really what right now we as Israel, we don't have enough boldness. It's like we blend in with the world now. We're scared to stand out and be this peculiar people that God has brought us out of this darkness to this light. A lot of people is like scared to be who we really are. It's like, okay, if I go there and say this, and if I do this, I'm gonna look different. I ain't gonna look right. I ain't gonna sound right. Until we become bold and stand up for y'all. As I read these biblical stories and see how, yes, for every time the Most High one battles for, and they go right back and start doing like the same things, and it's just like what we're going through with this crap that's in the earth right now, this pandemic stuff, where people are still not trusting Yah. I mean, if you read this book and see how Yah brought out Israel time after time coming from Yah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Absolutely. Any more comments? You want the mic?
See that so much. I see it in her face.
Anybody else?
Yeah. When we speak of boldness, I see the other brothers, the other Hebrews, they come out, they stand on the corners and gotta face the world and all these different people with their own ideas and their own way of life. That takes boldness as well. And I was wondering if at some point will we be able to go out and take boldness and go on the street corners and preach the truth?
Absolutely. We used to go on all the time, but it's a proper way that it has to be done. Because it is bold that they're going out there, but they actually going out and making the walk worse. You know what I'm saying? It's tainted what they doing. So it's bold to go out and cuss at other ethnic, other groups of people and tear them down and all that stuff, but that's like counterproductive. You know what I'm saying? So our whole thing is we've been trying to find the right balance to go back out there, not just go back out there for the sake of saying we went on the streets and we made some videos. You know what I'm saying? So it's gotta be right. You know what I'm saying? Trav is like perfect for it. He like get the angle and how to do it. You know what I'm saying? Me, I'm not that good at it. You know what I'm saying? That's why I stay in my lane, right? But Trav is perfect for it. So when we find that balance to do it, we'll be back. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I understand that. Okay, but I would like to learn the balance. When you said it's Trav, he's real good at the balance. And he's more experienced in it.
You gotta challenge me again, I'm gonna tell you what.
Teach us then. You know, he has more experience in it, and he has more balance. But the way that you guys teach is different from what I see on TV and on the streets. And that type of teaching needs to be exposed to the world, needs to be exposed to the community. And you can see brothers that's treating people with respect and dignity and still get the word out.
Absolutely. So the team of Travis Snipes and the other ox will be hitting the streets, and I will be looking.
Alright, so do y'all think there's anything like technology out here today that makes the law of God obsolete?
You said what now?
Say, do y'all y'all believe there's any technology out here today that makes the law of God obsolete?
No, sir. Nothing. Absolutely nothing makes his law obsolete. They said praise and worship rehearsal Friday at 7 p.m. So the Chosen Seed Mass Choir be here at 7 p.m. Right? Cymbals, tambourines, be here.
I have a quick question. I noticed as we read as referred to the New Testament, and a lot of the scriptures that we went over today spoke of the Jews, or Yahudim. And I often wonder because, for example, Paul is from the tribe of Benjamin. So at that time, were all 12 tribes referred to as Jews or Yahudi? And if not, why is it that we mostly just see, and I'll just use the King James Version word, why do we just see some or read scriptures and just keep saying the Jews, and the Jews did this and the Jews did that, and there's not much spoken of about other tribes specific, or saying the Israelites? Was it just a problem with or an issue with the Jews? Is that continuously, especially in the scriptures that we're talking about today?
Based on what I've read, when the children of Israel went into captivity, when the children of Israel went into captivity, you know, the northern kingdom went into captivity and the southern kingdom went into captivity. The majority southern kingdom came back to Israel. So it's not a real specific reason as to why. When you read like Josephus, you will see like that I think Ezra went to the northern tribes, and a lot of them didn't want to come back. But the southern tribes came back from Babylon and they established. So like even though it was loosely scattered northern kingdom Israelites amongst the southern kingdom before they went into captivity, those same Jews came back. So it was always loosely scattered northern kingdom amongst southern kingdom, but for the most part it was all southern kingdom that came back to Israel. So I'm not sure if that's the reason. It doesn't really say why it switched from specifying northern kingdom to southern kingdom, but what you see is mostly the southern kingdom coming back as a whole versus some loosely scattered northern kingdom Israelites coming back also. I think when you read in Luke, you'll see, I think Anna which was a prophetess, she was from the tribe of Asher. She was living amongst the southern kingdom Jews. But even before the children of Israel went into captivity, once Jeroboam had started kicking Levites out and putting them out of the priesthood, what you had was also, you had the Levites that come to the south, and you also had the northern kingdom Israelites that still wanted to serve Yah that came to the south as well. So they was always amongst each other, but why that terminology is used is not really specified. I mean, at least I haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
Yeah, well, a lot of it is based on, like I was saying, who was particularly there. You can see a lot of times, a lot of the northern kingdom in the New Testament was referred to as Gentiles because they weren't aware of the fact that they, so a lot of the Gentiles that were spoken of, you got Gentiles who are truly Gentiles, you got Gentiles who are northern kingdom Israelites.
Context.
Yeah, it's about the context. Yeah, the context. But it's like, so we got a whole lesson on it where you're kind of showing it. But you can see that's like one of the reasons when Mashiach came back, because it said that basically they have to what is that? Maybe Galatians or Corinthians where they say, and the two shall be no longer twain but one man or whatever. Yeah, was that Galatians? Say it again. Ephesians. Okay, Ephesians. But So you can see that was one of the reasons why he came back, because he had to reestablish the kingdom into one kingdom, and also a lot of those Gentiles that was referred to as Gentiles were northern kingdom. You can tell by context. Romans speak a lot about it. Within the northern kingdom, you had Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. But at a certain point, they all were referred to as Judah, just based on the fact that there was the southern kingdom. But it's not just a New Testament thing. That's kind of like you can see that basically from the time, even with the law, even with the prophets, basically around like Isaiah and all through there, there was prophesying about Judah. Like it was a lot about Judah going into captivity. And then even in Hosea, it talked about Judah and the northern and the southern kingdom basically being, not cast off as not my people. And then in what is it? I believe it's in maybe Matthew, I think it's Matthew, where it say, in a place where you were called not my people, you will be called my people again. I can't think of what that says. But
that's in Hosea.
But it's in the New Testament too, where I say
Acts 15.
Yeah, okay, Acts. But so I think that a lot of it is the region that they was in, the people that was there. But in Matthew the 4th chapter, when they go into when I say around verse 13, it says, and leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt in Kaphar Nahum, which is by the sea, in the borders of Zebulun and Naphtali, to fulfill what was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, the way of the sea beyond Jordan, it says here, Galilee of the Gentiles. So you understand what these Gentiles that's talking about here is not that they actually, exactly. So it's different reasons behind it. I don't think it's like one particular reason that you can point to as because of this, but it's kind of like a lot of different factors that play into that.
Have you noticed in any of the other versions that use the sacred name and stuff, they make the distinction?
It says Yahudim in here.
Well, I mean, besides that, I know Yahudim is the same as, modern term Jews, but does are there other versions that make distinguish or they have to go on that and just say Yahudim? Or on that, King James Version, everybody's aware.
No, I haven't seen that. Yeah, I haven't seen that where they make a distinction and call a different tribe, unless like it was clearly known because Paul let it be known. Like I'm the Benjamin, you know what I mean? So, but that southern kingdom, just like the northern kingdom, kind of got referred to as across the board of was it Ephraim? The northern kingdom would be referred to as Ephraim. Referred to as Ephraim or Israel for the entire northern kingdom. Same thing with the southern kingdom. A lot of times it was referred to as Judah. But even though it was 3 different tribes there, and also in the northern kingdom you had Levi in the northern kingdom as well. So, but at a certain point in time they didn't distinguish them by each particular tribe. They kind of had one particular tribe that they was called by. I'm not really sure why. Probably something good to look into.
Shalom. Sister Cynthia, as I was listening to them, when I think about what I read, from understanding the context from what I see, when they say Jews a lot of the time, it's referring to people who kept the Talmud. You understand what I'm saying? Like we was reading in one of the letters, Paul is a Jew, but he said the Jews did this, but the apostles did this, because the people who were of the Talmud, who kept the tradition, referred to themselves as Jews because they were focused on the flesh. When Paul and the apostles were trying to become the sons of Elohim by bringing everybody in. So they kept the flesh out of it, but the people who kept the traditions like we see today focus on the flesh. So that's why there was a differentiation from what I see.
The
have any other statements, questions?
Also another thing that to note, and just to add a little to everything that's been said, is that after a certain while, the northern kingdom got told you were not going to be a people anymore. Later on, it's prophesied that he was going to make them people again. Where in that place where it was said to them, you are not God's people, then there it should be said unto you, you are the sons of God. So the reason why Yahudim stuck is because after a certain point, even Southern Kingdom themselves were saying, y'all ain't Israel. That's how they got called Gentiles, or we refer to as Gentiles in the New Testament. So there's times where Gentiles is talking about the heathen in the New Testament, but most of the time it is referring to Northern Kingdom that got assimilated to Greek culture. So the reason why it's stuck is because when you spoke about Israel as a nation, all you knew was Jewry. Because even the Jews like, nah, them tribes, nah, them people, they ain't Israel over. So it just stuck. So that's why now when we're coming back in, it already stuck. Yahudim, it just stuck. So that's another piece of history to take into consideration that explains why.
So we don't have any questions in the chat. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up.
We're gonna pray out. Pray out. We're gonna pray out. Pray out.
Stand bold, Father, in your word, Father. Let it be the foundation of our being, Father. Understanding, Father, that no physician, no other person other than you, Father, has to say in our life. And as long as we stand bold on that word and it affirms it as our foundation, Father, that we can do all things for your Son who strengthens us, Father. Father, we thank you for the testimonies, Father, that's going forth, Father. We pray and ask, Father, that you would continue to give guidance and strength, Father, according to your word, Father, so that health would exceed and abound, Father, so that we would regain hope, strength, life, and power, Father, as you have granted us, Father. Father, we pray and ask, Father, that you would continue to help us be diligent in this walk, Father, that we would continue to walk boldly and stand strong and stand stiffly, Father, not bend and not break, Father, and that we would not fold, Father. And in those days, Father, when it may seem like we face insurmountable odds, Father, we would look to you toward the hills, Father, which cometh our help, Father, knowing that our help comes from you, Father. Father, we pray for all souls, Father, that were watching the live stream, Father, that they were edified, Father, that you would continue to allow your word to resonate in their ruach, Father. Allow your ruach to lead and guide, Father. Order their steps to be aligned unto their path, Father. Father, we pray for the children, Father, asking that you would continue to encourage them, Father, to be hungry for your word, Father. That you would allow them to thirst for and desire the knowledge and the wisdom that is contained in your word, Father. Father, we thank you for the blood that was shed for the remission of our transgressions and acts, Father, that we continue to cover, that we will continue to be diligent to follow your laws, study your ways, and continue to grow, and until the day, Father, that you would bring us back out of this captivity, Father, and we would stand together with you, Father, face to face, Father. All these things, Father, we pray and we give thanks. So be it. Abinu Shabbat Shemaim. Ikadosh. Shekah. Tabo. Mahapuka. Yaseh. Ratzonka. Ba'aretz. Ka'asher. Na'asha. Ba'shemaim. Tein Lanu. Hayom. Lehi. Hikanu. Uslak. Lanu. Eight. Ashmatenu. Ka'asher. Soki. Anaknu. La'asher. Ashmu. Lanu. Wa'al. Tabinu. Lede. Masak. Ki. In. Hasulanu. Min. Hara. Ki. Laka. Amam Laka. Waha Gibora. Wa Tifere. Lome. Ulami. So be it.
Hallelujah.